Hello, everyone. Been a long time since I've done a podcast. It was just because somebody was talking about Megan's podcast. I thought I'll do better than that. I don't charge for it. So I can't say I'll do better than Megan's podcast without doing a podcast. So, nearly finished. Never mind. Anyway, end times is today's subject. Now, I am a member of Simon Parkes' Connecting Consciousness, not cosmic. Anyway, the good thing is when you're not working on your own, you don't think you're going mad because each week or every 2 weeks when Simon does his report, I've been doing my own research, and it turns out as I do my research, Simon has noticed 90% of the same things. So it's nice to get affirmation. I've met Simon. He's a very nice, genuine bloke. So we've got this huge growing group of thousands of people around the world. We have regular meetings, which I miss half of them because I'm busy, but it's just enough to know what's going on, and they can see, and some of them are optimists and some of them are pessimists because that's how we are as people. But the point is, it doesn't really matter because you've got to be a realist, and all we've got is the present. But there is a picture and there is a pattern which I will describe. So anyone who's seen either my spiritual blog or spiritual page on Facebook, it will not be unfamiliar to you, but of course it all updates regularly because life doesn't stop. And the interesting thing is that I never do predictions for obvious reasons that they're bollocks, but I do see patterns. So if something's linear or it's actually been predicted and it's happened, that's a bit different. Now, being legally trained as I have been for many years, I'm good with evidence. And when I'm not religious particularly, cultural, yes, but not religiously, well, particularly religiously Jewish, but culturally, you know, could I be less Jewish if I tried? Probably not, or more Jewish if I tried. But you know, it's like asking somebody to be less black. You know, you're either Jewish or you're black. You can't sort of be less or more. Anyway, point being, Bible or not, all these predictions of up being down, right being wrong, left being right, and everything else, and up to the point of the other day when Klaus Schwab from the World Economic Foundation said that we'll be given the microchip to do our business with and wave our hand over the machine to take money out of our account. Of course, that was all straight from the bloody Bible, from Revelations. Everything in Revelations is happening. The wars, the rumours of wars, the false prophets. Anyway, if you're interested in it, look up End Times. It's not just in Revelations. It was actually previewed, not only I think in the New Testament, but various things pointed to it in the Old Testament. It's just a matter of whether you interpret it through the later Jesus version or the original version, but the same thing's going to happen. The only difference is that the Jews said the Messiah wouldn't be Jesus, or Jesus wasn't the Messiah, and Christians thought he was. But that's a little bit like Sunni and Shia over who took over from Muhammad, which is irrelevant because you've either got the good material or you haven't. You know, who is who doesn't matter, because, you know, belief in God, whether you believe in it or not, doesn't matter either. I'm sweating now because I've had my tea and I've been working today and it's been hot, as in physical work, moving boxes of bags and things. So it's all good for you. It's incredibly hot this summer. It's a lovely summer and I'm not complaining. I'm one of the only people not complaining in Britain that we've got a wonderful summer, because it really is. So the religion doesn't matter if it's actually written there and this is what's going to happen, that's what's going to happen. And then, you know, we've got all these very good Bible scholars on Twitter who pop up every time something happens. Here is what happened in the Bible, just happened. We've got a pretty good, well, it's like a diary, but in advance. It's one of these, not memorandums, but almanac. That's why I got an almanac for the end times. Of course, we don't know when it's going to end, but we do know how it's going to end. So basically, people are saying, oh, there's all this evil and wickedness around. The only difference between now and 50 or 100 or 1,000 years ago is it's in your face now, partly because the internet allows you to see it, and partly because basically we've created a situation, a climate where all the animals, all the little creatures that live underground are coming out now. Instead of coming out at night and biting you and going away and you don't see them, you say, oh, who bit me, who stole my money? The little buggers are getting very, you know, like the foxes, very daring in coming out and saying, look, you know, here I am, I'm taking your money, what are you going to do about it? Well, we have waves of awakening, because basically it's the alarm clock. People need to awaken, and I woke up myself. The quiet tones of the alarm clock came in the early 90s when I read David Icke, and I used to go to the bar. I went once because it's a long way away, but I had a list of recommendations to ask about the Catford bookshop, which had lots of rare material, and he helped me with a load of it, sold me loads of material, but it was very useful. And the thing is that what David Icke said 30 years ago is all happening, and I was interested in global warming, which wasn't even a thing back in the early 90s, certainly not enough for anyone to notice. It was bubbling under the surface, but it wasn't a big deal. They'd only just got over the little ice age coming, which never happened. Maybe it will happen, we don't know. You know, could go either way. Nobody can see the future, especially in the climate. Take my word for it. Piles of material to prove it. Anyway, so we've now moved on to this year, and after I saw the climate change, well, then it was called global warming, it was all theories. This will happen, this might happen, that might happen. None of it's actually happened. So it was just a theory, and I thought, big deal, you know, so it gets a bit warmer and the sea level rising, always happened before. It didn't worry me, especially as the ice age kills people and the warm periods don't kill people. I thought, you know, nothing wrong with that. So that was just, you know, a nice, interesting bit of scientific fluff. And then years later, when they started having what you call policies and agreements to reduce fossil fuel and to cut down how much energy we use and how much food we eat, I thought, oh dear, we've got problems here. That's not what woke me up. That's a different principle. The principle is that, you know, again, of the Bible, the fruit is what the tree is. So if the fruit is feces, the tree is a feces tree, and everything that comes off the climate tree is going to make you suffer right now. You know, they're going to cut off our gas boilers. You're going to suffer immediately. You're going to ban people from driving their cars. You're going to suffer immediately, etc., etc. It's all written down in the United Nations Agenda 2030. I'm just reading it straight off their memorised website. So what woke me up to global warming and everything else was the sea level, because your temperature changes very quickly every 5 minutes in Britain, whereas your sea level is tidal, and it only changes between high and low tide, what is it, twice a day. And if you want to go to Osey Island, where I was desperately trying to go take pictures because it's private, in Essex, you have to go at certain times of the day when it's low tide. Low tide, yes, because then you can drive there. Otherwise you have to wait till the low tide when the causeway is drivable. Otherwise it's an island, and it's very predictable. You always know. You've got these little books that come out every year, high and low tide on the British coast. If you want to know, go to Osey Island. They've got a little table of times when you're able to drive across, because otherwise you might drive there and spend too long, get stranded, and have to spend 4 hours there till the tide goes out. So the sea levels are what you would call reliable, and the tide gauges, unlike your temperature gauges, get wet. Nils Axel Norne, who's just died, he was old, from Norway, travelled the world with his tide gauges. And what he would do is he would go to all the places that the United Nations say are going to be flooded. He got his pole and he stuffed it in the water, and he said, "Where are all the tide gauges from the past?" Because it was amazing. I heard one with James Whale on the radio, and he literally spoke like that. I thought it was a joke. I thought, who is this Swedish chef, Norwegian? Then I do have a Norwegian friend of a similar age who talks like that. But this was really, I had to check that he was a real person and not some. But he had actually got the right data. Been all around the world to check it for himself. He had his own satellite time. He got a couple of hours a week or a day, I don't know, satellite time to measure the sea himself, so nobody could cheat. And he said that the sea level is pretty bloody stable. And I checked, and the sea level's pretty bloody stable, because back in the 90s, they said, oh, the sea level's going to rise by a few feet every century, which even then, compared to the hundreds of feet it goes after the end of an ice age, isn't really that much, because the normal rate of sea level rise for hundreds of years. I mean, it fell for many years during the Little Ice Age, because less of it was wet and more of it was land ice. So when the land ice began to melt after the Little Ice Age in the 16th, 17th century, of course the sea level started to rise at a grand total of 8 inches a century, which isn't much, because if it was, we'd notice. And then we've got a pile of photos which show all the coastlines around the world, Australia, Florida, Venice, everywhere else, 100 years ago and now, and all the buildings, and the line is in the same place. So the wet and dry theory was wonderful, because basically your barnacles can't grow in dry poles, wooden poles basically, or concrete shores, and anything that's structural. And the barnacles grow when it's wet. And he checked all the barnacles on these coastlines, said, well, the line of the barnacles hasn't changed in about 100 years, because the locals tend to put these little marks on the wood to show how high it is, so you know, and they'll draw a line saying, oh, this was the highest tide in 1843 or whatever. And consequently, when they said that these German floods were extreme a couple of years ago, they went to Magdeburg, I think it was, and they had this wall going up that high, and the flood was about that high, and the highest one was up there from about 1700 and something. And basically you can't fudge the sea level, because we know where it was, where it is, and it's very difficult to get more out of the sea level than the temperature, because you need a hell of a lot of ice to melt and temperature to rise. The sea, I think about a quarter expands in the heat, and the other 3/4 comes from melting land ice, which is virtually all Greenland, because there's very little in the southern hemisphere and the rest is from glaciers. So really it needs a lot of ice to melt to raise the sea level, and it needs a certain amount of temperature rise for that ice to melt. And if the temperature rise had happened, then the ice would have melted damn quicker than it was. I was just checking before I came on here that the world record lowest ice since records began, which I think is 1979, because they've obviously used satellites, so it's not a very long record, was 2016 and 2017 for Antarctic and Arctic, and we're above that now, so we haven't really changed at all. So if it was getting warmer, even consistently, you would think that the ice would consistently melt every year, not just, you know, randomly. And all the other trends are pretty much the same, and the sea level has increased from a grand total of 8 inches per century to a rise which, if projected from now, will be a whole 12 inches per century, which again I don't think is anywhere close to the scary stories that we were told back in the 90s onwards. So that woke me up, and I thought, well, you know, if this is wrong, then there must be something in it. And I discovered Enron, who did the carbon credits. And of course, once Enron were busted for it, carbon credits and carbon trading were proved to be entirely fraudulent. However, before they were fraudulent, Bill Gates, not Bill Gates, he'll be next, don't worry. I'll mention Bill Gates if necessary. No, Al Gore and Bill Clinton, not Bill Gates. You could say they run from the same prayer book, and they are meeting President Bill Clinton and his Vice President Al Gore in the White House before they were discovered to be fraudulent. Ken Lay, the head of Enron, met them and told them all about carbon trading, and Al Gore not only said, oh yes, we'll do that, and they made it legal to do it after Enron had done it, which was illegal when they did it, so they were still fraudulent, but it was legal afterwards. Al Gore bought his own carbon trading company, sold his own carbon trading credits to himself, and became a billionaire. So, you know, this sort of stuff is so basic, and people say, well, what credit have I got? I'm not climatologist, I'm not a scientist. Well, you know, law beats science in rock, paper, scissors. You've got science here and rock, or scissors, whatever it is, the law beats the science, because if the science is the slightest bit dodgy, any decent lawyer will notice. And now I'm a qualified criminal investigator, so these buggers had better watch out. Anyway, point being that there is definitely a huge scientific conspiracy, problem, reaction, solution. They want to take all our rights away from us, because if you look at these solutions, which you get rid of private transport, private housing, move everyone into cities, reduce meat down to almost zero, etc., etc., get rid of fossil fuel, it won't be a life at all. You might as well die and go to hell, because you'll go straight there anyway, being an open prison. Now, anyone that thinks that it's worth all of that to stop the planet warming in 2100, when we will never know if it happens or not, has got to be as thick as these people are evil who tell them it's a good idea. So it's all about numbers, really, and knowledge. So I call my webpage the Information Revolution, because the best revolution comes about from knowledge, not from anything else, but from information. And I do research because that's what I'm good at. There are many things that I'm not good at, so I stick to what I am good at. That and foreign accents. Yeah, man, you know what I mean? Me wear my jacket today and teen. Yeah, no. I've just been told officially by the BBC I am allowed to do black people's accents, so, you know, I got away with it. Anyway, point being that it's all official. The World Economic Forum, the United Nations, the Club of Rome, it's all published what they're going to do, and it's up to us to stop them before too much damage is done. So my second area, which is the flip side of the political, spiritual, they're just the same thing depending which way you're looking at it. So you're looking at the political side of the Bible being spiritual and all the information the Bible has coming out. Then you've got your God, which is in charge of everything else, which hopefully I'll have a quick crack at describing before I go, because God and death are the two things that are our escape from life. Because when life gets too tough, even the people that aren't religious start calling out to God, and even the atheists start worrying, most of them, about the fact they're going to die. Especially my grandfather, who said, oh, you know, if I've had a good life, I'll carry on, I don't believe in God or anything else. And when he was given a year or two to live by the doctors, he said, oh my God, I'm going to die. Yes, you are. So, you know, I've been working on this long before I was my grandpa's age, so I can find some way of escaping, not death, but the knowledge that the death is not the end. And that will be our next ambition. Because if you know that death is not the end, so I'm always reading books about it, and that God exists, you're basically protected in life and in death, because you know your life is going to be protected and your death is going to be protected. So you have the armour and then you are safe. So that is my job. So the next question was, well, what is my calling, I suppose, because either you're going to do it properly and just spend your whole life doing nothing else without any payment for it at all, going out busting this cabal, because you can't say other people are going to do it, because they haven't, have they? They're all doing their little bit to do it, but nobody's done it. So do I have the tools to do it? Yes. So as I believe I have the tools to do it, even these little videos, even if one person who didn't believe in it before believes in it now, I will have saved a soul, which is literally a miracle. So we talk about information. The information is 50% spiritual, 50% physical, but in fact the two are the same, because you can't have physicality without spirituality, because without the spirit everything would collapse, would just all be energy. So I believe it's the spirit that collects the energy into matter. So, and I've just had a lesson on that, which I'll tell you about soon. So basically everything's connected. So seeing the big picture physically, politically, is a good start for politics. And then if you reach the point where you see the big picture spiritually, which I must say I'm not actually there quite yet, otherwise I'd be enlightened, and there aren't many of them around. Many people say they are, but it's another thing whether you are or not. That doesn't matter. I mean, when it's going to happen, it'll happen. So once you see things clearly, every news event you'll say, is that important or is that not important? And if it's a bit unusual, like Ukraine, you think, well, that doesn't really seem right, and you go and check and say, well, my guess with Ukraine, just knowing what I do, the day before anything happened on the Ukraine border, the Guardian and all the left-wingers as well were saying Ukraine is one of the most corrupt countries in the world, and of course it still is. So just because Putin's invaded them doesn't stop them being bad guys as well. You know, this is turf wars, this is mafia wars. So as far as I was concerned, if Putin's going into Ukraine, it's possibly slightly better than Iran going into Yemen or Syria or whoever it is, because they're all Al-Qaeda out there. They're fighting each other. It's cousins. It's basically these long-running Arab feuds that have been going on even since before Islam. So I thought, well, if Russia's going into Ukraine, he probably knows what he's doing because, we know Putin's. Can I say he's mafia here, or will they shoot me with an umbrella or something? Well, I just implied it. Anyway, the point is that sometimes they keep their own backyard clean. And maybe Putin's doing a little bit of house cleaning in Ukraine because they're getting too clever. In which case, it might be doing us all a favour because for some reason, the four most powerful politicians in America all have children that are working in Ukraine and members of things like gas companies. So, bit of a coincidence, all of them working in Ukraine, to me, of all the places in the world. And all, every single one of Nancy Pelosi, Joe Biden, two others, whoever they are, all got children working in Ukraine for huge businesses there. What an amazing coincidence. But none of it is coincidence because, just like the cats all come here when the woman next door goes away and cats can't get into her house, they come in through my door and say hello to me because they know that they'll get looked after. If you want to be fed and watered, you go to the best place, which is why all the migrants go through France and come to England because France doesn't give them anything and we do. So, there's always a good reason for something. People don't just turn up in Ukraine randomly once or twice, 4 times, definitely not random. So, there are clues everywhere. So sometimes to me it's obvious and sometimes it just smells a bit funny. I think, is this important or is it random and irrelevant? And most of the time it's obvious, but when it's a little bit odd like Ukraine, you just have to do a bit of thinking and say, what's behind this? Why are they doing it? And then, of course, check with Simon Parkes. He's not God or anything, but the point is he's usually right. Just like David Icke was right about everything except the Zionists and the lizards, because nobody's perfect. And even Alex Jones says that every student has to use discretion, otherwise you get 3 different teachers teaching you 3 different things. Well, one of them might be right, but 3 of them can't be right because they can't conflict with each other. So you've got to use your own common sense, and the more you use it, the better it gets. And you can filter out nonsense. So you either see it clearly or not. The people who are hypnotised, the people that are asleep now, don't even waste your time with them unless you happen to know them as friends and family and they give you the chance to awaken them, because I have pages of data on all sorts of things. When I show it to them, they'll swear at me and block me, and that's about it. But very rarely do I actually accept the data. Time after time, I've heard things on global warming on the radio and said that's wrong, and I've checked it, and the Times did it the other day as well. That's wrong. This isn't record heat, this isn't record rainfall or anything else. Got the graphs straight from the University of East Anglia Climate Department, sent them to the Times. I don't know if they publish them, so I don't get it, but they never tell you, but maybe somebody will tell me. Can you imagine them publishing somebody that says, oh, you actually didn't do your research and said that we're getting more heavy downpours in Britain now? We're not, we never have done. And the longest temperature record in the world by thermometer is the Central English one, and every season plus the year, the total, so divide it into 4 seasons and add the years together, 400 years show no trend whatsoever. Fancy that. No hot days, no cold days, nothing. It's just, returns to the mean if you leave it for long enough. Now, fancy that. Anyways, I won't go on with the climate. It's just that was the thing that woke me up. But once you find out that everyone's crooked who's involved in it, it doesn't matter whether they're pushing the climate one day or lockdowns one day or anything else. But if it hurts you, you know that there's a good reason, because you don't lose money either. When you see huge amounts of money vanishing out the economy, it doesn't vanish, somebody's stolen it. It just goes somewhere else. All those billions we've given to Ukraine haven't vanished. They are going into the Ukraine mafia coffers. If you think the Ukrainian people are going to see it, or even the Ukrainian army will get a few bombs that don't go off anymore, like the fireworks, and you wait for 10 minutes and nothing's happening, you walk away and then they go off and it's too... Oh, I'm right. Let's hope it's working now, because sometimes I use sometimes I use the YouTube, sometimes I don't. It turns out, because of a certain flood that I had to get a new computer, and the one I wanted wasn't available, and I got this flash compact thing, doesn't have a hard disk on it, so turns out my video was the last straw for it and ran out of memory. So I will be doing this one and then editing the two together, which I think is easy. If you don't have an editing suite, it's not easy because you have to find software. Anyway, I'll carry on where I was left off. You might not even notice the join. If you do, it doesn't matter. Anyway, so I was saying you either see things clearly or you don't. And if you do, I was just about to say, when you show people who don't understand what's going on, the data, like who commits the most crimes in scientific racial things, that sort of thing, and let's say rainwater and hot days and everything. These are called statistics and scientific data and material. They don't like it, so they get very upset because they're fear-based. Oh my God, it's going to get so hot in 500 years, we're all going to melt. They are irrational, illusional, and delusional. So, one thing Simon and I both have in common, we both separately realise that Satan is behind this, but Satan is our teacher. Satan is not just the one that hurts us, because it works only in two ways. The power of Satan is by illusion, because he offers you something, gets your trust, but you can't keep it. So, for instance, if you steal something, it's sitting there, but if it's got that smart water on you and the police come with their ultraviolet, not only will you get the stuff removed, you'll also go to prison. So it's not really yours. Even if you never get nicked for it, the fact you could is enough that it doesn't really belong to you. So everything that you get from Satan is stolen, and you will get punished for it, because karma means that if you do anything that is motivated by Satan, you will get your punishment for it one way or another. That's pretty much, I think, guided, guaranteed, and everything else. So, don't do it because the world is going, the law is going to punish you. Do it because you're going to get punished anyway. Don't do anything from the dark side. So when you see that these satanic things are going on, it's a lesson to us all. The end times are the end of darkness, because once enough people see it, what do you do when you see the place is full of germs? You get rid of them. So it's just a matter, basically, just like when they discovered bacteria hundreds of years ago and realised that if you get antibiotics, these are the bacteria, and wipe out most of the diseases with antibiotics. The satanic people and actions of the bacteria of the 21st century, and when enough people get their microscope glasses on, all we can see the bacteria. And the trouble is, the sheep, or whatever you would like to call them, I don't like sheep, these are insects, they're lovely animals. I call them morons, I suppose. The morons, basically, once they see it, well, they won't see it. It doesn't matter whether they see it or not, but when you show it to them, they haven't got their magnifying glasses on. So, that's not a microbe, that's Bill Gates. I said I'd get back to Bill Gates. He's a lovely man. He gives people loads of money. Well, so does Satan. How does Satan get your trust? He makes you rich, but then you sold your soul. Anyway, it's a very simple standard formula, which is thousands of years old. I think if people who are watching this don't understand it now, they never will. And if you do understand, you don't need me to tell you what you already know. But the point is that we only need a certain number of people to see it. And the information revolution will happen when some of the things I've seen on Twitter for years, there's always a delay. So you see really good, interesting bits of news, and it takes weeks or months for it to get on the radio, if it ever does. It's still the news, but they clearly hold it back till when they're going to use it. So the next thing that they do is, oh, this happened, but nobody ever got into trouble for it. It happened, but nobody got into trouble. We found Hunter Biden's laptop. I'm not going to get into trouble. They're too busy chasing Trump, who has never been convicted of a thing in his life. Because, so say, if Julian Assange can't find any dirt on Trump, then I don't think the FBI will be able to. So, they're making themselves look bloody stupid, because the Russia scandal only went on because Hillary knew she was going to lose the election. So first thing, is that Russian disinformation. Now, if you or I had said it, everyone would piss themselves laughing. But Hillary Clinton, the losing presidential candidate, says, oh, blind, we better do something, otherwise they'll say we haven't done anything. So they wasted years and years. And now I think Jeffrey Dunham, we don't get it, Durham, don't get much information over there. You have to dig for it like a prospector to find it on the internet. Is doing an inquiry on the FBI, whether they did it properly or not. That'll be interesting. if it ever comes out. But these are all stages in the revelation. And it's called revelation for a very good reason, because everything will be revealed. And it won't be revealed in little bits and pieces, because basically, it's the alien landing on the White House lawn. Once the aliens landed and said, "I'm an alien, I'm on the White House lawn," within probably the day, even the people in the darkest jungles around the world will know that the aliens have landed. Don't ask me how. They've probably got smartphones using satellite internet. Most people do now. So I don't think the day, which again is by what you call the grace of God, we've got no say in it. I think we can speed it up a bit, because you've always got this tension between the push and the pull of the good and the bad guys, and that's why you say make yourself the saviour, because otherwise, if everyone relies on someone else, the place will be full of rubbish. So if you see rubbish, pick it up, and if you think you can encourage others to do it, encourage others to do it, and that's how it works. So don't give up just because you think somebody else will do it, because nobody's done it yet. They've revealed little things to people like me who nobody listens to, but it's not been on the news really. And so far in America, they've managed to suppress every single investigation against the Democrats. And I don't believe it's possible to suppress it forever, because I think all they need to do is, for the right person, whoever he may be, would pull a little handle and say, right, send the dogs out, and they'll go get all the Democrats, and you won't find out, one Democrat has just been convicted of a minor fraud. You'll find that 4 or 5 of the top Democrats in the last 10 years have been convicted of treason, because, you can't have a conspiracy with one person. They all have to work together. As I always say to people, if you want to know about conventional politics and business, just think of the mafia, and there you are. That's all you need. So, same with the spiritual stuff. You won't have 1 or 2 people having a revelation and then it'll take years and years to go through. That's not how the end times work. You'll have people who are able to see and do things so clearly that they can show other people, because the point about enlightenment till now is that nobody can pass it on. So if you are, the best description of enlightenment is God awareness, realization that God is in everything, and that you are God, and everything you're looking at is God, is subjective. So people who are enlightened can't pass it on to other people. So if you're aware of God, you've seen God, you can't show someone else. But the time will come when the revelation of both sides of it, the political and the spiritual side, will come, when somebody who has become aware of God will be able to say, all right, I can do these miracles now. We'll be allowed to do the miracles. And this takes me to my last lesson on the weekend, where we were shown how to bend spoons, which I've been trying to do. Well, I don't now. I hadn't now for many years. When I was 12, Uri Geller was on the TV bending his spoons. I spent years trying to do it, never managed it. He had a lesson with well over 100 people on the weekend on Zoom, how to bend spoons. I suppose about half of it was what you would expect to be done, and the other half was slightly, focusing your attention in certain ways. And it's all going to be on the YouTube anyway, so I didn't manage it. Got the spoon here, it's still here, still dead straight, but never mind. You don't give up. Says if it bends wonderful, it doesn't bend wonderful, don't give up. But the point was, it was all on video, so all the other 100-odd people were there, and after 1 or 2 minutes that we started, half of them had bent their spoons already. And then, after 10 minutes, when we kept going through different ways of doing it, everyone, over half the people, had showing all these twisted spoons. Now, if you bend the spoon manually, it tends to go like that, but these were going up and down and twisted and curved and everything, and 2 or 3 of them. You can't really fiddle that, because I've seen them do it actually at the Uri Geller performance, and people in the crowd have got these huge, great, thick metal spoons and keys and things, and they start bending. So it seems to be real. So the point is, these revelations are coming thick and fast. If enough people, because don't forget, it's not just metal. If you can use your consciousness to create matter or to interfere with matter, then obviously the consciousness is the prime mover of the matter, not the other way around. So all we do, we use the quantum field, focus it through our consciousness, become part of what it is. So incorporate the object in your consciousness and then move it like your hand. I'm just going to bend my hand, bend the object. It really is supposed to be that simple. So when you get all these people walking on water and bending metal, everyone will say, oh, hang on a minute, we can't really argue with that. Just like they couldn't if the aliens went on television. So it's going to be all or nothing. All the political stuff will come out in one go, and all the spiritual stuff will come out in one go to only one thing. It's like seeing a monster in the garden. If you see the monster's finger in its hand, or Loch Ness or wherever, there's a monster. Then you can't really argue after that. There are no monsters because it's there. Well, this is the dirty great elephant in the room or whatever, and nobody will be able to deny it. So that's the end. How long it will take, we can do bits and pieces to do it. So we can speak it up for ourselves. So I'm doing my own work on this bending the spoon because you never know if the other people can do it. I'm sure they're not cheating. So can I, so can you. And same with the busting open the illusion, because everything is based on deception. Satan has two things. You have to invite him in, and it's all based on illusion and deception. So anything he gives you isn't yours, and anything he does give you that you think is yours will be taken away and you'll be punished for it. So don't fall in that trap. That's the temptation that Buddha and Jesus had before they became enlightened. So I'm just checking my notes. I was split up in the middle of my video, not for the first time. Lies and deception, yes, once you know. So yes, spoon bending, yes. Oh yeah, it was interesting that the patterns are fairly predictable, and the best thing to do with the enemy is to make fun of them. However, when they were talking about the next pandemic, and that was again Bill Gates, he's a software engineer who dropped out of college and he knows more about viruses and pandemics than anyone in the world apparently, just like Greta Thunberg is the world's greatest climate scientist. It's amazing. And Tony Blair knows everything about viruses as well since he's retired. Who knows that they spend all these years doing PhDs when you're not looking. Anyway, I said, well, it'd probably be smallpox. Because if you use the, if you're playing poker and you've got all your cards, say, oh, well, we've given you COVID. All right, I'll get a trumpet with smallpox. And within a week, we've got monkeypox, which is a variation of smallpox. It's not fatal normally, but it's not much fun. And then I said the following week, which I did think was being funny, is I said the next thing, if they're making us eat insects to combat climate change, they make us eat human flesh. And within 2 days, I think it was a Swedish university said eat human flesh to combat climate change. And unfortunately, they have jumped the shark. They have reached the level where parody doesn't even want to go, because the real parody stops where you say things which are impossible, because everyone knows it's not true. But when you've actually said something that's going to be impossible and it is true, we know that we're at the end of the times, because they literally are doing the things that we said would be so bad even they wouldn't do it. Yes, they are doing it. So the only question is, of course, that how will the people die? Will they wait for them to die? In which case, you'll be doing what dogs do, eating animals that have died naturally with all their germs and diseases and everything, or killing them when they're fresh and healthy, which is probably even worse. Would you like to eat somebody that's been killed to order, who is nice and safe and healthy, or wait for them to die and eat them with all the tumours and rotten organs? So Satan really is working extremely hard now in the end times. Say, I'm here, I'm Satan, please get rid of me. And people like me spot it straight away. Thousands and thousands of other people do, and other people say, what's Satan? Don't talk rubbish. They're looking after you, it's for your own good. So what I say to those people is, I'll give them one chance, possibly 2 chances. This is the facts, these are the truth, move on, because you only get insulted. And but, do your bit. Never miss a chance to inform somebody, but don't waste your time trying to do it 2 or 3 times if they're not interested. Because we only need all the material to come out politically, and they'll be busted anyway. You don't need to believe in election fraud if it's proved. You don't need to believe climate change is fraud if it's proved. You don't need to believe certain Democrat politicians are guilty of treason, because if it's proved, they'll know. So, it doesn't matter what people's opinions or beliefs are, and all this happens, as I say, it won't happen bit by bit, because it's all connected. There is this chain of crooks If you pull the thing, they will all follow because they're all connected, they're all working together. And it only needs one person to, you know, in America they do it regularly, plea bargain and say, you know, I'll tell you everything for immunity. And they don't normally do it with that high level because they'll get killed anyway. Look at JFK, he's going to be JFK and his brother again. So, you know, they are scared to do it, but eventually you can't suppress the truth so much. It's a bit like sweeping things under the carpet. The 10th time you've done it, there's this great big hump in the carpet. People say, what's that hump in the carpet? Nothing. You know, the first or second time you can pretend there's nothing under the carpet, but eventually the filth, the pile of dirt becomes so high that you can't actually remove it. So anyway, that's how and when the dirt, the information will come out. But I'm doing my bit to help. You can do your bit to help. And if I had unlimited resources and finances and time and everything else, I still nag the TV stations to let me go on there. And I've done loads of podcasts with online things, but you know, it takes a hell of a lot to get in the big time. And there's going to be no casting couch from me at this time of my life, so I can't use that. So I think I have covered everything. So the easy bit is to do the video, the hard bit is to edit part 1 and part 2. So wish me luck. Now I'm going to sign off and put everything together and hope it works. Good night.